Escalating as strikes intensify, the threat of regional conflict deepens with missiles and drones fired across the Middle East. And as civilians suffer, fears of a prolonged war are growing.
The United States military began major combat operations in Iran.
The tyrants of Tehran target civilians. We target the tyrants of Tehran to protect civilians.
Now we are defending ourselves. That's it.
This government does not believe in regime change from the skies.
We continue this mission with ferocious, unyielding resolve to crush the threat to the American people.
In this special program, we examine why this war started, how it's widened, and what could happen next. America and Israel continue to hit targets deep inside Iran. Its Navy and Air Force are being decimated, the Supreme Leader assassinated. Dominic Waghorn looks at the operation and the impact from the first week of war. We'll examine where has been hit and what those targets tell us about America's motive. Is it all about regime change? Tom Cheshire looks at the strategy behind the strikes. There's no end in sight, but key to any peace deal will be the Qatari Prime Minister, who's told me he feels a deep sense of betrayal from Iran.
This miscalculation by the Iranians to attack the Gulf countries has destroyed everything. Our countries don't want to be part of this war.
Lebanon has suffered too, with Israel striking Hezbollah. In Beirut, there is deep fear about this conflict escalating yet further. John Sparks witnessed the aftermath of one strike along the city's red line. We'll ask, is the UK really ready for war? Deborah Haynes gives her assessment after years of cuts which have left the military stretched thin. And what do Trump supporters think about America entering a new war? Mark Stone speaks to the MAGA faithful in Texas. I'm in Qatar, across the Persian Gulf from Iran, and over the next hour we'll speak to our correspondents across the region. In northern Israel is Cordelia Lynch. In Beirut is John Sparks. Stuart Ramsey is in Sulaymaniyah in northern Iraq. Sally Lockwood is in Dubai. And at RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus is Ali Bunkle. But first, let's start with a look at how this war began. From the first strikes to the retaliation that quickly pulled the region into open conflict. Our international affairs editor Dominic Waghorn has the full story.
The United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury.
It was long expected, but still came with devastating surprise, settling decades-old scores in a matter of hours.
We are going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground.
An overwhelming use of force aimed most of all at taking out Iran's leadership. This has been a war of choice launched by Israel and America entirely on their own terms.
No stupid rules of engagement, no nation-building quagmire, no democracy-building exercise, no politically correct wars.
But it has escalated and spread, engulfing against its will an entire region. A hated dictator is gone. But what is the legality and what is the final objective in this campaign, and where will it end? The backdrop was this, a week of diplomacy, described as positive by all sides.
Are you optimistic about these talks? Can you avert war with Iran?
Talks to be continued days later. They never were. Instead this, one massive explosion after another, rocking the skyline of Tehran. And then confirmation Ayatollah Khamenei, ruler of Iran for more than 3 decades, was dead. Killed as he met with senior government officials in his compound. The attack's location and timing based on US and Israeli intelligence. His death announced emotionally on state TV. A massive force of American air power built up over weeks on land and at sea has been unleashed. Hundreds of US and Israeli warplanes flying around the clock, targeting Iran's air defences, its missile arsenals and symbols of its regime. The campaign extended as far away as the coast of Sri Lanka, where an American torpedo sunk an Iranian warship. From the outset, Donald Trump made it clear regime change and surrender was the objective, with this message for its supporters.
Lay down your arms. You will be treated fairly with total immunity, or you will face certain death.
But that mission statement has shifted constantly. Regime change, destroying Iran's missiles, its nuclear program, its ability to spread terror, have all been listed as objectives. For the enemy in Iran, the aim is simpler: to declare victory. They intend to survive this. Their regime battered but intact, and they seem determined to do so.
The Iranian nation, our armed forces, our brave armed forces, are taking necessary measures to defend Iran in the most strongest way possible.
Both sides have learned from when they last went to war last year. We'd witnessed then for ourselves the awesome reach of Israel's air power, finding and killing Iranian commanders and scientists in their homes. The challenge has been repeating that when the enemy this time knew it was coming. In the 12-day war, Iran struck only Israel. This time the gloves have come off. Friend and foe attacked to maximise the chaos. Iran has targeted population centres and hotels, terrifying tourists and energy infrastructure. Attacks on tankers have closed the Strait of Hormuz, forcing the price of oil to surge to record levels, threatening a global recession. The jeopardy for America became clear early on. In Kuwait, 3 US warplanes shot down by friendly fire. And Israel's much vaunted air defences have been penetrated. An Iranian missile leaving dead at least 9, among them 4 children, in a synagogue and school. In Iran, scores of children have been killed, among a death toll of around 170, in a strike believed to have been caused by an American missile. The war has been expanding all week, most of all in Lebanon, where hundreds of thousands were on the move, fleeing after orders to leave their homes were issued by the Israelis, who launched multiple airstrikes and threatened to flatten southern Beirut like Gaza. Israel is taking the opportunity to try and finish off Hezbollah. Diplomatic pressure is building to end the war before it escalates any further.
This kind of prolonged conflict is unlikely to bring about the change required. It's more likely to produce chaos, destruction, more loss of life, and not only in Iran, but across the region.
But the American president, it seems, is in it for the long haul, demanding unconditional surrender.
We have, right from the beginning, we projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that.
Speculation that President Trump would want a one-and-done spectacular operation that is over quickly has been confounded. America and Israel seem determined to do maximum damage to Iran's leadership and its military for however long that takes. The war is exacting a punishing toll on Iran's military and civilian infrastructure, creating apocalyptic scenes across its capital. But the Iranian regime is proving resistant to change. Over the weekend, a new supreme leader was announced, a sign of continuity and defiance. Khamenei's son, Mojtaba, given the top job. The Iranians are hoping the longer they can hold on, and the longer this goes on, the bigger the challenge for President Trump to maintain a war without much popular support.
The war is definitely unpopular. I think the American people, they're mainly opposed to it by large margins, but mainly they're, I think, confused. They just don't understand why the United States is going to war at this point.
We didn't start this war, but under President Trump, we are finishing it.
American president, who promised no more foreign wars, is pressing on.
Combat operations continue at this time in full force, and they will continue until all of our objectives are achieved.
A war without UN or US congressional approval and with confusing multiple objectives is intensifying, and we're told only just beginning. Dominic Waghorn, Sky News.
Well, that was Dominic Waghorn there with his assessment of this war. And my sources within the Israeli security establishment, even before this war, told me that they didn't believe that regime change was possible, that this was about degrading Iran's military rather than actually bringing about regime change. Well, let's go live now to northern Israel and speak to our Cordelia Lynch. And Cordelia, just give us a sense of how Israelis have reacted to being drawn into yet another war.
Well, something, Yalda, I've been incredibly struck by here on the ground in Israel is the amount of political consensus, the widespread support for this war. They are galvanized by it, emboldened, and they are hopeful. And I think there are a number of different reasons for that. At the very core, though, they view Iran as an existential threat, and this as an unprecedented opportunity. I think contributing to it as well is that the Israeli interceptors have been effective, and so we haven't seen the wide-scale damage or civilian loss of life here that perhaps some might have feared. So that certainly plays a role in all this. As well, there is more confidence in the Israeli security and military forces as well, in the way that there were concerns about intelligence failures in the lead up to October the 7th. Another thing that you really get a sense of here is that there's patience. People are willing to sit this out, even if there is no time scale, no stated end game yet. And there's patience too for them to pursue a war with Hezbollah as well. I'm currently right on the border with Lebanon. Just behind me, about a kilometre, is the demarcation line here. And just in the past few minutes, we've been hearing an intense exchange of gunfire. There have been heavy blasts. There are sirens that have been sounding about 10 minutes from here in Kiryat Shimona. I'm in a place called Metula. These are towns that were evacuated in the wake of October the 7th. This time round, people are willing to stay put, and they are confident they will not only win this war with Iran, but potentially wipe out Hezbollah in Lebanon too.
Cordelia, thank you so much. Well, access to Iran is strictly controlled, with most international media not being allowed in to report on this war. At the same time, internet access has been cut off across the country, making it difficult to verify the scale of damage done by American and Israeli airstrikes. What we do have is satellite imagery showing Iranian military, government and leadership facilities. Well, this shows how the headquarters of the IRGC in Tehran used to look. Satellite imagery taken in the last few days shows the damage sustained by some of the buildings. The Israeli military says it has struck dozens of command centers belonging to the Iranian government. Here, the Islamic Revolutionary Court, also in Tehran, and how it looks after the strike. The US military has also been targeting command and control centers belonging to the Revolutionary Guard. Strikes also targeted the presidential complex in Tehran. The domed roof was almost completely destroyed by an Israeli airstrike. Iranian officials have not yet acknowledged the damage. And this is a naval base thought to be used by the IRGC just outside the Persian Gulf. The after image here shows 2 destroyed buildings at the port and a sunken Iranian vessel. The head of the US Central Command claimed that 17 Iranian vessels have been destroyed so far. Our data and forensics team have also been verifying footage posted from inside Iran. But we also wanted to explain why those sites were being hit. Here's Tom Cheshire's assessment on the strategy behind the strikes.
What is the point of this war? What's the aim? We've heard all sorts of different goals from Donald Trump, Benjamin Netanyahu, all the way down the chain of command. But the targets that the US and Israel are hitting tell their own story. And we found one type of target that could be a pretty big clue to the strategy behind the strikes. This is what we're talking about, a campaign of airstrikes that is only intensifying. These are some of the latest attacks in the northwest targeting military positions, border posts, and police stations. Remember those, they are crucial to this. And these are all the sites in Iran that have been hit, as mapped by the Institute for the Study of War and Sky's Data and Forensics team. We've broken them down into different categories: military, political, unknown, civilian, police, infrastructure, and nuclear. In total, over 360 sites have been hit. The Israeli military says it's dropped more than 5,000 bombs. The US says it's hit more than 2,000 targets. And that includes massive strikes, like this one on the very first day on the former Supreme Leader's compound, which killed Ayatollah Khamenei and scores of other senior leaders, this huge plume of smoke. There have been others, an office of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard called the IRGC, the force that plays a crucial role in supporting and enforcing the Iranian regime. Or this hospital, which sustained damage when the Iranian state broadcaster nearby was hit. Here we can see babies in incubators being evacuated in those scenes of that apparently accidental damage. But Sky's Data and Forensics team has also verified and mapped strikes in one type of target in particular: police stations and other law enforcement, like border guards. In total, we verified airstrikes on 45 police buildings across Iran. Now, this isn't just happening here in Tehran, it's also over here in the northwest Kurdistan province, the home of Iran's Kurdish minority. That is really important. We'll come back over here. But we'll start with Tehran. These are all the police stations that have been hit. This is what it looks like. This was police station 104 in Abbas Abad. This is what it was like before the strike. And then we can see the aftermath. Here you can see it has been completely destroyed. Now, if you look at the White House's official war aims, which took a few days to publish, they've defined them here on social media. Destroy the Iranian regime's missiles, annihilate their navy, ensure their terrorist proxies can no longer destabilise the world, ensure Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon. You might notice there is one thing missing from this list, and that is regime change. Israel, though, has been less coy. This is Benjamin Netanyahu on social media saying, "Our joint action will create the conditions for the brave Iranian people to take their destiny into their own hands. The time has come for all parts of the Iranian people to cast off the yoke of tyranny and bring about a free and peace-seeking Iran." So how do police stations fit into that?
I think we know what the aims of this war. It's clearer from when Israel talks about it. It changes, in Washington, but all in all, it's about regime change. Whether the regime change itself will be done by Israel or the Iranians, time will tell. And one of the ways to instigate and then maybe accelerate this is by dismantling the police and the security forces.
And although we've seen this pattern in different parts of the country, we talked about Tehran, it's in the Kurdish part of Iran, back here in the northwest, where it's really clear and it's really important. This is Sanandaj in that region. We've mapped strikes in the city. Again, police stations have been high on the priority list. This is police station 15 in Sanandaj after a recent strike. You can see this is being targeted. Again, this isn't military infrastructure. This is a police station that appears to have been hit. And this is a region where there are forces that oppose the Iranian regime and are more likely to be loyal to the US and Israel in case of an uprising. So regime change may not be an official US war aim, but Israel wants it, and the American government has said it wouldn't be upset if it happened. And by targeting police stations, which our analysis suggests is a specific strategy, they're creating the conditions for that to happen.
Tom Cheshire with that report. Well, missiles continue to land across the Emirates. And in Dubai now is Sally Lockwood. Sally, Iran said it would stop bombing its neighbours. Is there any sign of that actually happening?
Not yet, Yalda. Another 12 ballistic missiles intercepted by the UAE today. A slight reduction in the number of drones fired in, but that could change tonight. And, you know, UAE officials have said to me here, this is far worse than they could have imagined. They did not expect civilian areas, domestic infrastructure to be targeted in the way it has. They did not expect more missiles and more drones to be fired from Iran at the UAE than any other country, including Israel, in this war. But that is the reality we are now living here in the UAE. And you might be able to make over my shoulder the Fairmont Hotel behind me on Dubai's iconic Palm. That, of course, was hit on the first night of this war, which was perhaps a sign of what was to come, causing so much shock to residents and tourists. And of course, there are still tens of thousands of residents stuck here trying to get home because of airspace closures and enormous travel disruption in the region. But in a worrying development just yesterday, a first desalination plant was targeted in Bahrain, which has caused a lot of concern because this is an extremely water-scarce region. They are very, very reliant on that critical domestic infrastructure. And what this region really doesn't want to see now is any sort of escalation that could threaten infrastructure like that and Gulf states' water security.
Sally, thank you so much. Now to rare anger from one of the Gulf's most seasoned diplomats. In his first interview since the start of the war, Qatar's Prime Minister has told me this was a dangerous miscalculation and a profound sense of betrayal. A country that tried to stay out of this war is now under fire, warning the consequences won't stop at the region's borders. I sat down with Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani here in Doha.
There's a big sense of betrayal. This is the second time. That's why it's also like for us, it's been something really significant to see the attack, which was showing that being pre-planned. Like once the war started, just maybe an hour after the start of the war, Qatar and the other Gulf countries been attacked right away. And all of us before this war and repeatedly we've been saying and repeating that we are not going to take part of any attacks or any wars against our neighbors. We would like to see a peaceful neighborhood. We were helping Iran and the United States in reaching diplomatic solutions. But this miscalculation by the Iranians to attack the Gulf countries has destroyed everything, actually.
The language we're hearing coming out of the United States, total surrender, from the Iranians saying we can fight for another 6 months. Where do you see this heading? Are the objectives clear to you?
Well, honestly, like, you know, when the objective, I think, remains with the countries who had, you know, who've been like party of this war. And I think that from our perspective, our position and our principle will never change, that war always ending around the negotiation table with a diplomatic solution. What's happening right now in the region is very dangerous, and it's not affecting only the regional security, but affecting actually the global security and stability, the global economy. And you've seen the impact of what's happening here in the GCC on the global economy, whether it's from the energy point of view, logistical point of view. Qatar alone supply 20% of the LNG of the world. That's when we were attacked. The first day we had to halt the operation. That impacted the prices globally dramatically.
This does sound like, as you say, a disaster for the world. It's not just about the region.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, we have seen like what are the cascading effects of this escalation, and we are just a week from this conflict. And it's we need to ensure first that Iran should stop all the attacks against the Gulf countries and the other countries that they are attacking, and they are not party of this war. We need to seek a way to de-escalate the situation and to find diplomatic solution whenever it's possible.
You're one of the few global leaders who's talking to both sides, the Americans and the Iranians. What is your message to both sides?
Well, actually, first of all, our message to the Iranian, they have to stop the attacks right away. It should stop instantly. What happened is really a huge shakeup for the trust in the relationship that we have with Iran. We will continue talking to the Iranians. We will continue trying to seek de-escalation. At the end of the day, they are our neighbors. It's a destiny. My message to them is you shouldn't include or involve any of the other countries in this war, in order also to be able to be helped in de-escalating the situation. If these attacks are ongoing, there will be no one able to help them or to even to start voicing some reason, because everyone is busy engaging in defending their countries. For the US, we would like to see a de-escalation. We would like to see an end for this conflict, a diplomatic solution that addresses our concerns as well as their concerns.
Sheikh Mohammed, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Qatar's Prime Minister there. Well, this war started with the US and Israel attacking Iran, but within days, Hezbollah was targeted in Lebanon too. In Beirut now is our international correspondent, John Sparks, where there has been heavy bombardment this morning. And John, it does feel like the strikes are getting worse.
Hi, Yalda. Yes, I think that's fair to say. Massive bombardment this morning. It began at sunrise. The Israelis striking the southern suburbs of the city with about 12 airstrikes, and we've been listening to the explosions sort of echo and boom across the city. Those suburbs just over my shoulder, we can see haze, some smoke in the horizon. It follows a warning from the Israeli military warning all residents of the city to stay out of Beirut's southern side. And I think what we're looking at is another escalation in what is a fast spiraling crisis, a war that threatens the very fabric of Lebanese society. The fear is familiar. Exhaustion runs deep as the people of Lebanon are dragged into another round of bloodshed. And this war is escalating quickly. New lines now divide this country, red lines which residents can't cross, with large areas under intense aerial bombing by the Israelis. They include much of southern Beirut.
Red zone. We're on the red line now. We're crossing into the red zone. This area is served by the Israeli evacuation order. Okay, and there it is. That's a big site.
As far as the group Hezbollah is concerned, it's a typical neighborhood. But Israel says this district serves as their military HQ.
Wow. Looking at a series of 10-story buildings that have been struck. They would have had shops at the ground level. Some of them have come down, some of them are badly damaged. There is a smell here, an acrid smell, metallic smell. The damage is extensive. Okay, we've got to go.
We were given 2 minutes to film at the bomb site, then told to return to the nearest checkpoint.
You can see the damaged cars on the side. There's a tow truck here, but he's got a lot of vehicles to remove.
Okay. However, we weren't allowed to leave the area. Our vehicle was blocked by members of Hezbollah. Then we heard a powerful blast. There's been another strike. Nearby allowed some sort of airstrike by the Israelis. Can't move at the moment. We don't want to use our cameras either.
This is a warning strike. It's not a major strike. Do not film. They might fire in the sky now, so do not watch it.
Okay. No, it's not a good.
We sped away to the relative safety of the city centre, but it was unclear, at least initially, whether the Israelis had hit a target nearby.
Okay, we're out now. We've left that area, and this is what we think happened. We think the Israelis used an airburst, a warning signal, a loud explosion, telling people to get out of the area. We were boxed in at that moment by Hezbollah. We did get out, and then about 10 minutes later, they hit a building nearby with an airstrike.
Israel has deployed the full force of its military. In southern Lebanon, hundreds of targets have been hit, including this power station in the southern city of Tyre. I mean, it's not a military target, at least on the face of it. It's not a weapons store. This looks like infrastructure, civilian infrastructure, and I think that signals a new phase in this conflict. Their tanks and their armored vehicles are taking new positions in southern Lebanon. These images recorded by one village resident who was defying an Israeli order to leave his home.
You're very close to the Israelis themselves. You can see them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yesterday I saw them there in this area in my without using camera, without using zoom. I saw them there. There was more than 12 vehicles.
This is a war that few people want. Yet 500,000 civilians have been displaced. An ad hoc camp has gone up under the stands of the National Stadium, and we met a new arrival. Marwa al-Shaba is preparing to give birth.
This probably isn't the place that you want to be right now.
No, I don't want to be here. But is there anywhere else? I wouldn't stay here, but I have to. I can't complain. We're all in the same boat. But what can we do?
How much pain can a nation endure? Hardship that begins at birth. In Lebanon, it seems, endless suffering is part of life.
You know, Yalda, the numbers here are absolutely extraordinary. UNICEF reported this morning that they believe the number of displaced people in this country now is at 700,000. 700,000 people driven from their homes. We believe the death toll is now at around 500 people, including 83 children who have been killed. That's 1 week to turn Lebanon into a humanitarian disaster zone. The government of Lebanon, it has condemned the activities of Hezbollah. It's tried to ban their military and security activities, but it is ultimately powerless. And if it tries, it will invite civil war in this country. And the Israelis seem prepared to go much further, including the prospect of putting a significant number of troops on the ground in southern Lebanon. I believe we are just at the beginning of this crisis here in Lebanon.
John, those numbers are devastating. Thank you so much for bringing us up to date. Now, along the rugged mountains of the Iran-Iraq border, a new front in the region's tensions may be emerging. For decades, this remote borderland has been a refuge for Kurdish opposition groups seeking greater autonomy inside Iran. Now, groups, including some who are armed, say they're ready to cross the border and fight. Our chief correspondent, Stuart Ramsey, sent this report from northern Iraq.
Jets and missiles crisscross the skies over northern Iraq as the war in Iran spreads across the Middle East. Some of the United States' strategically important bases and runways are dotted across this part of the country. These are borderlands between Iraq and Iran, but they're also home to the Kurds, an ethnic minority that straddles the border of the two countries. The small mountain towns are where thousands of Iranian Kurds flee to find safety from the Iranian regime. Amongst them, armed opposition.
Hi, sir. How are you?
Karim Parwazi is a senior political figure in one of the groups preparing to cross the border to join the American-Israeli war against Iran.
Obviously, a lot has happened in the last few days. There is a sense that the Kurds may get involved in Iran. Is that you're planning that now?
For many years, for decades, this regime has attacked us, killed our people, and carried out acts of genocide against us. Now that the regime is becoming weaker and weaker, we see this as an opportunity to finally move towards achieving our freedom.
The wives and children of the Peshmerga, as the fighters are called, have moved out of their military bases as their men prepare for battle. Zanya is one of the fighters who will cross. He's visiting the safe house. Zanya lost his wife and baby in an Iranian missile attack 4 years ago. For him, it is personal, and he thinks now is the time.
Do you think this is one of the most important times now? Is this the last best chance to achieve the falling of the Iranian government?
Much of international community agrees this regime must go. That coordination makes this moment different, and it gives us hope. This is an opportunity for change.
Many living in these communities have been waiting for decades to return home. They believe, with American support, this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. Well, the United States and Israel may have all the sophisticated weaponry and firepower, but it's ironic. But actually, the success or failure of this war could be decided by communities like this one. They're Kurds. They're prepared to cross the border into Iran and join in what they hope will be an uprising against the regime. They didn't ask for this war to happen in the last few weeks or so, but they are prepared to take part. Would a Kurdish incursion kickstart a nationwide uprising or herald the start of ethnic sectarian chaos in Iran? Like so much in this war, nobody's sure of the endgame. Stuart Ramsey, Sky News, Northern Iraq.
Well, let's go straight to Stuart now and speak to him live. Stuart, is there any sign of that Kurdish offensive?
I think it's fair to say that the Iranian Kurds would absolutely love to get across the border. I'd say it's also fair to say that at this stage, the Iraqi Kurds, who are obviously much more powerful here, and their political groupings are not keen to do so yet. Mainly because America hasn't asked them to. Indeed, President Trump, over the last day or so, has said that he doesn't want the Kurds to be involved. There's been speculation that he did. And as a result, there's no coordinated air cover from the United States if there was to be an incursion. Without that, which puts me quite simply, it would be suicidal. So at the moment, they're holding and waiting. If there is going to be an incursion, there will have to be an agreement with the United States for that air cover so that they can move into the Kurdish areas and protect them. Without them, though, heavy artillery would be fired on them and it would be a massacre. So they're waiting and they're watching.
Stuart, thank you so much for that. Now, the war in Iran may be 4,000 miles from the UK, but it matters to your cost of living. Today saw the biggest one-day spike in oil prices in 6 years. Gas prices have surged too, pushing up energy costs, and that's just the start. Here's our economics editor, Ed Conway.
It's been an extraordinary period, just the past week, just over a week now, looking at the economic consequences of this. And let me just kind of give you a kind of update of where we are. The world's biggest oil terminal, Ras Tanura, that's effectively down right now. That's Saudi Arabia. You've got the world's biggest natural gas terminal, liquefied natural gas producer, Ras Laffan in Qatar, down as well. I mean, unprecedented to see these two things happening at the same time. And on top of that, you've got, for instance, just in the last few days, production being cut there in Kuwait, production cut as well in Abu Dhabi, so in the UAE, United Arab Emirates. I'll come back to why that is in a second and what's happening there. But the consequences, well, if you look at the crude oil price, this is crude oil just going back to last year. This is what happened after the invasion, after the attacks on Iran. You can see, look, how it went up sharply. Not perhaps as sharply as some people had expected, but just more recently, that's risen. So it's now up 43% just in the last week and a bit. Natural gas prices up even more sharply, and this is something that affects, obviously, the UK, but also Asian economies quite a lot. Look at this. Natural gas prices up really sharply, came down a little bit, but now back up again. And I think there's this dawning realisation, that's up by kind of basically more than doubled, this dawning realisation that the longer this goes on for, the deeper the consequences for everyone else. In the case of oil, there are at least some stockpiles that have been rising before what happened in Iran. And the expectation is they get kind of drawn upon. So you've got the G7 potentially drawing out, taking those stockpiles and using them. But here's where things get interesting. Those are stockpiles outside of the Gulf. Inside the Gulf, there's a different issue, OK? So you have this choke point, the Strait of Hormuz. Usually the oil goes out of there, but if it can't go out of there, These places, Iraq, Kuwait, the UAE, they only have so many days' worth of storage that they can build up that oil before they have to start cutting back production. That's basically what's happening here. It's no coincidence that Iraq, Kuwait and the UAE have started to tail down production because normally they would expect, when they're producing oil, for it to be shipped out in tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. And if you can't do that, then it starts to back up here. And if you back it up and basically start to run down production, that could cause damage within these oil installations. So this is serious stuff. And it's not easy to put Pandora back in the box after that. It's worth saying, I mean, the Strait of Hormuz, traffic there has basically ground down to zero. And we have never really seen this before. Like I say, the most important energy choke point in the world. You're not seeing any traffic go through that. Now, of course, that's important for energy, but it's also important for other things as well. Look at kerosene prices. So jet fuel up by 52% just in the last week or so. Look at fertiliser prices, because kerosene obviously comes from petroleum. Fertiliser prices also, fertiliser comes from natural gas, up by 30% as well. And other things too. So, for instance, the Gulf is it produces 1/3 of the world's helium, actually in Qatar. Helium, really important, not just for kind of kids' birthday parties and balloons, but also for MRI scanners. So if you want to supercool anything, you need helium, and this has supercool magnets, MRI scanners all around the world. They depend on helium. You're not getting a lot of that helium anymore. Or supercomputers. So quantum computers, again, they need to be supercooled. If you don't have helium, it's really hard to do that, and that's a big issue here. And there's other issues. There's things like sulfuric acid. About 1/4 of the world's sulfuric acid, that's produced within the Gulf. It kind of comes from that petrochemical processes as well. And if you don't have sulfuric acid, you're going to struggle to refine copper. So there's a really important knock-on consequences underlining the fact that it's not just about oil and gas. And this could trickle through. The impacts of this could trickle through to all different parts of the economy over the coming weeks.
Ed Conway with that report. Well, British forces are already confronting threats in the Middle East, intercepting missiles and drones. But as tensions rise, so do doubts at home. If Britain were drawn into a major war, could the military cope? Our security and defence editor Deborah Haynes has been finding out.
British fighter jets defending the skies above Cyprus and across the Middle East as Donald Trump's war with Iran rages. Here, a suspected Iranian drone is destroyed by an F-35 jet, while the Royal Navy is preparing finally to deploy this Type 45 destroyer with the ability to take down ballistic missiles. It may also send an aircraft carrier. An impressive show of force. But the reality is a lot less reassuring. Put bluntly, the UK military has too few troops, ships, jets, guns and, crucially, ammunition to sustain a major fight for very long.
Insiders working at the Ministry of Defence tell me the sorry state of the armed forces is the brutal reality of the impact of decisions by successive governments over decades to spend more on peacetime priorities and less on defence. Even now, with war in the Middle East and Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, there's been no decisive shift to put Britain back onto more of a wartime footing. Instead, there's a widening gap between the rhetoric you hear from ministers about how they're rebuilding the Army, Navy and the Air Force and the reality on the ground.
To give a sense of what's been lost, we've tracked how the military has shrunk since the Cold War. These figures don't include reservists, but if the UK were to be drawn into a prolonged conflict today, it would only have around 125,000 full-time forces, comprising almost 26,000 in the Navy, 70,000 in the Army, and 27,500 in the RAF. By contrast, in 2003, when the UK joined the US in invading Iraq, it had just over 200,000 service personnel, with 42,000 in the Navy, 112,000 in the Army, and 53,000 in the RAF. Going back even further to 1983, during the Cold War, there were 321,000 regular members of the armed forces, split between 72,000 in the Navy 159,000 in the army and 90,000 in the Air Force. The defence budget, as a proportion of GDP, has shrunk as well, with Britain spending 5% on the military in 1983, compared with just 2.5% in 2003 and 2.3% now.
Kia, nice to see you. Thanks for your time.
The Prime Minister has vowed to reverse the slide and invest in new technologies, but there's still no clarity on how plans set out in a major defence review published last year will be funded, or if it will be delivered faster than a lengthy timeframe of 2035.
As a country, we are short of cash, and there's some very difficult choices to make about how you find more money for defence. And our view was the government would have to find more money sooner. And what I would say is the world, since the review was published by the government, has just got more difficult. So the urgency is greater and the vulnerability is absolutely no less.
With Britain's sovereign bases in Cyprus already in the firing line, though, the armed forces are having to fight Iran's missiles and drones with what they've got and hope it's enough. Deborah Haynes, Sky News.
Well, Ali Bunkle is at RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus for us. And Ali, Donald Trump has been fiercely critical of the UK's response. What's the view of those stationed there in the line of fire?
Well, I think as Deborah said at the end of her report, the military personnel here can only do what they can do with what they are given and what they have here. And that was, or the lack of equipment was exposed when one drone, we think it was fired by Hezbollah across the water in Lebanon, did get through. It struck a hangar. It didn't do much damage. But as I say, it did expose the weaknesses of air defences here. And ever since then, there's been a bit of a furore around what the British government has or hasn't done. They have sent more jets to here, 2 helicopters, one of which I saw in the last half an hour or so, and then a Royal Naval destroyer. But that's not due to arrive for about a week. And yet the French have a frigate off the coast here, the Greeks have a warship here, the French have sent jets, the Turkish have announced today that they are sending some of their jets to the north of the island. The French have also sent an aircraft carrier. So I think there is certainly within Cyprus and the Cypriot government a feeling that the reason that the island has become a target is because of this base and other British military bases here. And so therefore they expect that the British government do what is needed to protect the island and the bases, and they feel that they haven't done so. So, yes, there are defensive operations taking place here, but it feels as though it's a case of catch-up because events have rather overtaken them.
Ali, thank you so much. Well, as tensions escalate in the Middle East, the debate in the US is sharpening too. Among many Americans, there's anger, skepticism and deep distrust of another foreign war. But what about the MAGA faithful? Mark Stone went to find out.
I'm here in Corpus Christi, Texas. Last Friday, the president was here.
Please welcome the President of the United States.
He stood right here in this port.
How close are you to making a decision on strikes?
I'd rather not tell you. You would have had the greatest scoop in history, right?
That turned out to be quite the question, because what we didn't know then is that an hour earlier, on Air Force One, he had authorized the strikes on Iran, maybe the most consequential decision of his presidency, and then he went for a burger.
Number 47.
A campaign stop at a local restaurant, and no hint of the operation he'd just ordered.
I'm going to get some stuff for Air Force One, and I'm going to get the hell out of here, all right?
Within 12 hours of this, America would be at war. At the burger bar, any unease? Absolutely not.
I absolutely trust him to make those decisions as our commander-in-chief, because like I said, he knows all of the things that we don't know.
There is no questioning Ashley Penwella's passion for the president. She was here last week. But I wanted to know if this no-wars president, the president who would put America first, had he prompted a wobble among his base?
This is the president of peace, the president who said he would stop wars, not start.
It's peace through strength.
Well, it's peace through war at the moment.
Well, let me tell you something. I am proud of my president because Like I said, I'm no military expert, but I want you to know that from what I saw was people screaming for help. They were trying to protest, and they were getting murdered for protesting. I'm proud that my president tried to help free those people.
I guess the worry is that he doesn't have a plan for the day after.
I mean, they can worry that he doesn't have a plan, but he obviously does. He's our commander-in-chief.
For Joe Michael Perez, another mega MAGA fan, it's more about the threat he'd heard about from Iran.
America first, right? Yes, America first. I believe in that. But Iran, they've been chanting death to America for a long time. And me as a patriot, I don't take that lightly. We'd rather get to them before they get to us first.
So much of this seems to rest not just on trust in Trump, but a total faith in him. This is Cody Gonzalez.
Whatever he says we got to do, we got to do. We don't have a choice.
But you do have a choice. I mean,
well, you have a choice, but you made the choice already, right?
Yeah.
You chose for him, right? Yeah. So you got to back up your chief.
So they are the most loyal, for sure. No wobbles from them. And this, Texas, is, of course, a Republican stronghold. But what about those who don't actually bother to turn up at the rallies? An evening at the Brewster Street Ice House provides the answers.
They're an evil empire. So you can either kick the can down the road or you can do it right now.
What about like oil prices and stuff? Because it seems that
temporary. It's temporary.
Do you think that there is a risk of this becoming like another Iraq or Afghanistan?
Well, I hope not. I hope that we have enough technology and might that it can be a short war.
Yes, I voted for him. And no, he's not starting the war in the Middle East.
But he just did, didn't he?
No. How?
Well, by bombing Iran. I guess that's the concern.
Well, he did what he had to do.
President Trump has built up credibility with his base this past year because he's done everything they wanted and more. He's cemented faith and trust. And so in his corners of America, they'll take his word for it on Iran.
Well, Mark joins us live now from the White House. And Mark, Donald Trump insists America didn't start the war, but is there any sense in them finishing it? Is there an exit strategy right now?
Well, look, I don't see one at the moment, but what I do see is that the war is not going as Donald Trump had expected. And we can make that judgment because you just have to listen to his different justifications for the war. Is it about regime change? Is it about nuclear weapons? Is it about ballistic missiles? Is it about Iran being a state sponsor of terror? Is it all of those things or just one of those things? And his view has shifted, has morphed, has evolved over the course of the last week, which at times feels like a lot longer. So he clearly does not think this war is going as he expected. I think there was an expectation of a Venezuela Part 2, a one and done, and in and out. Clearly the advice he was getting on that well off. He will be looking at the stock markets. He will be looking at the oil prices. He's been told for months to focus on the home front and not on faraway foreign wars. What's really interesting is that, you know, as you saw there, his most loyal are taking his word for it at the moment. They openly admit they don't really understand what this war is about, but they trust him on it. But there's a large part of the population beyond that base who doesn't trust him any longer. He is losing them for sure. So I do think that his mind will be very focused now. He needs to find an off-ramp, but it's very hard to see what that now looks like. He can claim victory. He can say objectives met. He can say job done. That does not mean the Iranians will stop fighting or stop firing.
Indeed, Mark, thank you so much. So that's the view from the White House. In this program, we've heard from our team across this region examining what has happened and crucially why. And the big question that Mark was raising there was, how does this end? What is the end game here? And is there a day after plan with this region now changed forever? Well, that's it from me and the team. Let's just bring you some live pictures from Beirut in Lebanon, where smoke can be seen rising after the Israeli military claims to have struck infrastructure belonging to to Hezbollah. The Israeli military has confirmed that it's targeted and limited raids in an area in southern Lebanon to locate and eliminate terrorists and dismantle Hezbollah infrastructure. So this war continues. From me and my team, goodbye.